Hey everybody, Don Zoldi here, CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, and welcome back to the Dawn of Drones podcast. Great to see everybody out there. Just a reminder that we are live, so make sure you're jumping in the chat today because we love to see you. We like to know where you're from. We'd like to hear your questions, hear positive comments. We love all of that. And we're so excited today because it is June 1st and we're kicking off a brand new month and a brand new theme. And today it's all about emerging industry leaders. And we have one with us here today, John Miner from the Sonoran Desert Institute, School of Unmanned Technology. So John, welcome to the podcast.
Hey Don, thank you much. I'm really grateful to be here with your audience, and it was great to see you at AUVSI Exponential and at the La Tech Connect function that you kicked off there.
Well, thanks so much, John. Yes, John was one of several Carasoft scholars that we had at our inaugural Law Tech Connect workshop at AUVSI Exponential in Orlando last month. And I got to see John again. The first time I met him was actually at the Consumer Electronics Show, right? CES 2022.
Right.
And you had just kicked off the new year big, right? Like you had just really kicked off the School of Unmanned Technology and just received your certification. And if memory serves, you joined us at the Women in Drones, Women to Watch honoree program and came to our networking reception. So that's where I met John originally. And you all had like an incredible presence there. Like you just kicked off the school and you had a booth there at CES.
There was a lot of excitement, and this was about a year in the works to get ready for this kickoff at CES, and I was surprised. We had a lot more traffic than I really anticipated initially because of post-COVID. I think everybody was excited to be out and to get things going, and since it's not really a drone show, it's about it's the hugest technology show in the world. But there were a lot of people that were interested in drone training and drones and things like that. So it was a great kickoff for us.
Well, we're alluding to it. We're going to talk about it more deeply, this idea of the new school and the certification that SDI received that took a year plus to garner that certification and accreditation. But before we do, John, let's talk about you. And I always say this to people and then they start jumping into their organization or their business, but I really want to know like your background to kind of set the stage for people because you're the dean of this new school and you bring such a wealth of experience and knowledge to the table. I'd love for people to kind of appreciate that. So here you go. Tell us all about it.
Okay. Well, I've always been fascinated with airplanes. I grew up in Southern California, in the 40s and 50s, and my dad had been in the Army Air Corps. And interesting thing about that is he did his training at Lowry Field there in Colorado, and I did my initial technical training at Lowry Field before they closed it down. So,
oh my God, that's up in Denver, right?
Right. That's right. Yeah. So that was kind of neat to go through the same place for training that he went through. So it was kind of a natural fit for me to join the Air Force, after high school. I went in as an enlisted person. I worked the avionics sensor systems on the SR-71 and the U-2. That was an awesome experience to get to work on the Blackbird airplane. Just really neat.
And John, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second here. For people that aren't, familiar with the United States Air Force or these aircraft, I mean, these are basically spy planes you're talking about here that you were working on as an enlisted member. Is that right?
Right. That's right. Yeah. Airplanes that go Mach 3 plus. Well, the SR-71 does. Flies above 80,000 feet. Awesome airplane. I mean, if you look at it today, if you go look at pictures of it, it still looks like a futuristic airplane. So that was really cool. And then I wanted to advance my education. So the Air Force had a program that was sponsored by the Air Force Institute of Technology called the Airman Education and Commissioning Program. So I applied for that, got accepted. They sent me off to school to get a bachelor's in electrical engineering. And then after graduation, they sent me to Officers Training School. And then I was able to convince AFIT to send me back for a master's degree after OTS. And so that was kind of my, start to the Air Force.
Well, I want to just kind of jump in here to foot stomp this for those that don't appreciate the path that John took. He entered, kind of right out of high school as an enlisted member, did some pretty cool stuff early on, and then got accepted to a really elite program where the Air Force paid for him to not only go to school and get a bachelor's and then an advanced degree, but also to transition to become a commissioned officer. And so, I mean, that's just like really significant, and not a lot of people have taken that path, John. So that's incredible. And electronic engineering, so mind blown. So tell us a little bit about the assignments you had after you became an officer.
Well, sure. Yeah. When I went back to grad school, I had an assignment. I was going to be working on the Airborne Laser Lab out at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico as a flight test engineer. But that program got shut down while I was in grad school. So the Air Force sent me to Edwards Air Force Base, which is, the home of flight test. I mean, that's where Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier. That's, where all of the Century airplanes were developed. Just a really cool place to go to, out in the middle of nowhere. I don't know that
it has to be.
Spouses all like to be there.
They're doing crazy testing out there. It better be.
That's right.
Nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah. That and plus they've got a big giant dry lake bed that you could land on during emergencies and things like that.
Yeah.
So I went out to Edwards. I was assigned as a flight test engineer working on a program called Lantern, which stands for Low Altitude and Navigation Targeting Infrared for Night. And that particular program was the Tactical Air Command's attempt to be able to fly and fight at night, where before, they were kind of limited to the daytime, or, they couldn't really get down low and see what the enemy was doing, under the cover of darkness. And so it was a very big program. It had a lot of money behind it. It was the Tactical Air Command's #1 developmental priority above even airplanes at the time. This is back in the early 80s. So I worked on that program. I ended up becoming the infrared sensors expert for the Flight Test Center out at Edwards, and did that. Worked on a number of other programs. Worked on an F-16 ISR program that we'll probably talk about later. And then I had a choice to make. I had two assignments. I had one to be able to go to the Air Force Academy as an instructor in the electrical engineering department. And the other assignment was to go to test pilot school and to keep flying, and there really wasn't much choice. I loved flying. I had started out flying in F-16s. Funny thing is, when I went to the test pilot school, then I had to kind of backpedal and started flying in F-4s. So that was pretty neat. So I went through their program as a flight test engineer, graduated, had a wonderful career in flight test. Was privileged to be the president of the Society of Flight Test Engineers for a couple of years. But I got to work on a lot of different types of systems, both manned and unmanned. And back in some of the early days of the unmanned systems that look like the Tomahawk cruise missiles today.
Well, I remember you had mentioned to me earlier that even as far back as 1986, you were working on uncrewed aircraft. And it's funny, John, because so many people talk about this industry and how new it is, but for the military, this is not new, right? And military's been working with uncrewed vehicles. Well, you were one of the first ones, right, in the early 80s. It obviously didn't come to real fruition until probably the mid 90s with the Predators and the Reapers and kind of the operations in the Middle East. But it's really interesting to me when I hear people say, oh, it's also new, and it really isn't. And you were really on the cutting edge of some of the testing involved in that. So let's talk a little bit about the unmanned aircraft, the uncrewed aircraft that you worked with.
Okay. Well, my first introduction to unmanned aircraft is I was assigned as the project manager for a program called F-16 near real-time reconnaissance. It was a demonstration validation program. And what the Air Force wanted to do was transition away from wet film, and the giant film canisters and all of those things that I worked with on the SR-71 and U-2, and to go to all digital, because digital was the coming age of technology. So this program was a joint program. We flew a potted F-16, and that's particular system had old wet film cameras, but they modified them, took off the film backs, and they put on these charge coupled device electronic backs to be able to have this digital imagery and be able to send it through a data link. Part of that program, though, part of the development was the development of a BQM-145, which was a medium range unmanned vehicle. So that was my first exposure to unmanned vehicles. Since that time, I worked on a bunch of different programs for the Air Force and other services and other agencies, both classified and unclassified. One of the unclassified ones was called the RQ-3A Dark Star, or TR3 minus. And that program came out of a black program that they didn't have enough money to fund the entire program, and it was the subject of requirements creep. And so they broke it up into two advanced concept technology demonstrators, the Global Hawk and the Dark Star. And I was on the Dark Star program mostly. And that was a high altitude, low observable aircraft that was designed to be able to penetrate without being seen, get very close to highly defended targets, and be able to capture imagery of those targets without getting shot down. So that was really cool to work on that. Unfortunately, the Air Force didn't take it all the way through development, and it never went into operation. And that's a whole nother story that we can talk about later.
I'm sure that is a whole nother story, but let's transition a little bit. So clearly you bring this incredible wealth of experience and knowledge from your time in the Air Force. And I love how, just from our conversation with Fred Bovetto, retired, Lieutenant Colonel, was on our clubhouse last week. In fact, I think Mike can drop that replay link of Fred's audio from our clubhouse last Thursday. It was phenomenal. You surround yourself with these incredible people we're going to talk about, plus your own experience and knowledge, and really brought this this idea of Air Force training and how it works there forward into this school, which I think is very significant. Let's talk first, before we get to the unmanned school, about SDI and its origins, because it's kind of unique. John, I didn't realize until, you and I linked up again and I started researching this on my own, that SDI was really founded initially as a gunsmithing program, so it's just kind of unique, the origins of that. Can you just share a little bit about that with us?
Sure, absolutely. So SDI was founded in the year 2000. They were approved for private post-secondary education by the Arizona State Board in 2001. And then they received their first accreditation through the Distance Education Accrediting Commission in 2004. So they have been accredited since 2004, ever since, doing continuous accreditation during their regular cycles. Gunsmithing was an original program that SDI had. And their focus has always kind of been on niche programs, these small niche programs that they need the workforce out there to be able to do the jobs that are available. And so gunsmithing really became the core program and was the impetus for the real growth behind SDI. And SDI has been successful with gunsmithing. They have well over 2,000 students going through at any given time. So it's pretty awesome. So then looks like you were going to say something.
I was just going to say it evolved from gunsmithing to the next program I think it launched was armoring.
Right. Okay. Yeah, they added the armory. I think it was, don't quote me on this date, but I think it was around 2012, something like that. But it was added in there. And then around 2012, they were acquired by a company called Trade Training Organization. Trade Training Organization bought the school, and then they applied for Title IV certification. They applied to be able to offer Pell Grants. All of this continued the growth of the school. In 2016, they began offering Title IV to the associate's degree students, and in 2018 they were able to offer the Title IV to the certificate program. So they continue to evolve, improve, offer all kinds of funding options for students, all within inside of an accredited program that, as the purpose of accreditation is to guarantee to the students that they're going to get a quality education.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of want to peel back 2 points. The first is Title IV. For those that don't know what that is all about, it's really the ability of an institution to offer federal grant funding, like what John just mentioned, Pell Grants as an example. So, a lot of military members will have access to, the VA, programs, and they can get grants now as of that certification or that approval through SDI. So that's pretty cool. And I imagine you do have a lot of military members that would take advantage, or former or current military members that would take advantage of both gunsmithing and armory through SDI. The other point you made, John, was about accreditation, and having been, the business matters attorney for the U.S. Air Force Academy myself. I was personally involved in the accreditation program at that, college. I mean, most people don't realize it, but the Air Force Academy is the Air Force's only, no kidding, 4-year college. It's a college. And, this idea of accreditation is super intense. There's written portions. You have to bring all kinds of documents and records for like 10 years worth of, there's a cycle, right? And you have to answer all
Right.
these questions, and then they bring people to the campus and conduct interviews of faculty, of staff, of students. And at the end of the day, they decide yes or no, like, should this be accredited? They review all the syllabi. So I greatly appreciate what you went through. So tell me then, SDI, you said it evolved over time, through this kind of gunsmithing armory, gets kind of bought out by this particular company. I believe at some point it becomes employee owned, which is really cool too, and very important to have that buy-in. Then, like this, I think I would say, what, in 2021, this idea, or maybe a little earlier, comes about that, hey, let's open a school for unmanned technology. What do you think inspired that?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think one is that the president and some of the senior management people were looking for another niche industry to be able to go into that was that needed a workforce to be able to support it.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I met the president, Tracy Lee, at a DEAC workshop, at an accreditation workshop. And I was working with another university, and we were having some issues with accreditation, and they offered, Tracy and her team offered to help us and give us advice and with the accreditation. So that was my initial introduction to SDI. And they were doing this, not for money, not for profit, just to be a good neighbor and help you out, kind of thing. So I got to learn about the SDI company, about how they operate, about how they're committed to students and especially to veterans. They're very, very veteran friendly and do have a lot of veteran students. In fact, they've got so many veteran students that sometimes that can be an issue, because you got to have the right mixture of veterans and other funding sources as well. So there was an opportunity in late 2020 for me to come on board with SDI. And in 2018 is when they transitioned to being an employee-owned company. And after they became and not just an ESOP regular employee-owned company, but 100% employee-owned. So every employee is an owner of the company now. And I love that culture. I love it where every employee is focused on the student and making sure that they're going to be successful in helping the school grow. So it's a great place to work. So when the opportunity came to start up this new School of Unmanned Technology, I jumped on it in a heartbeat.
Well, you mentioned the word culture, and there's nothing more important for any organization is to have a positive culture. And so it sounds like that is one of the main things that attracted you to SDI, just through your interactions with them. And also being a professor myself, I'm adjunct at CSU Pueblo for Homeland Security and the Poli-Sci Department undergrad, and teach Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University worldwide graduate course on law, drone law and policy, uncrewed systems. Technically, it's multi-domain. I mean, creating that culture and being a part of that is very significant. And and it took you, once you got there, like a year to get accredited then as a distance education institution for the unmanned
That's right.
school?
Yes, we originally started developing the courses and putting the program together. It really started about January of 2021. And we got a great Christmas present. We were accredited. We were notified that we were accredited right before Christmas, and that was fantastic. And so then we moved forward with the launch at CES, which was perfect timing in January, early January. And so yeah, being in the right place at the right time, and then having a school that already understands the accreditation process and has everything built in. It's not that they don't wait for the 5-year cycle to come around to work on the processes to stay accredited. They continuously do that every day. And so they're constantly working on this continuous process improvement, making sure that they're meeting all the regulations and all the accreditation standards. And I think it's really an impressive place to work. I've worked at a few universities, and this place has impressed me more than any place else I've ever worked.
Well, just with my background and knowledge, I'm impressed that it only took a year to basically stand up an entire school. Like you said, the curriculum, getting that accreditation, everything on board in a year. Well, actually less than a year if you start in January, and by Christmas you had the cert in hand. I mean, that's significant. John, I'm thinking now might be a really cool time to launch that video.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. We're going to roll a little video here of the school, so we'll remain silent as that plays.
I'm not sure what happens.
All right. Actually, the sound plays and we can't hear it here, so it gets a little confusing, but I'm pretty sure everybody out there got
How do you
really cool
turn your
music in the
Figma,
background.
Adobe
That was the
XD,
official
or
launch
Sketch
video, right, that you
designs
guys
into
put together
developer-friendly?
for the program?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, so really neat. So let's talk about that program, because I know people are very eager to learn about it. First of all, the program you launched in January was your first one, and it is online, right? It's an online course of instruction. So can you tell us what that course of instruction entails?
Absolutely. So that first program, that is our accredited program, it's the Certificate in Unmanned Technology Aerial Systems. And it's designed to give somebody that's new to the industry the education and the training and the knowledge that they need to be able to go there out into the unmanned, uncrewed. I'm making that transition, unmanned to uncrewed, in my vernacular. I've been using unmanned for so long, but we're actually making that transition at the school. So it gives them the opportunity to go out and get a job in the workplace, and possibly an entry-level position, or depending on what their background and training is, maybe even a higher level position. It's a 16 semester credit hour course. There are 4 courses in it. There are 2 core courses that are required courses, and there's 2 electives. The core courses are, the initial one is UAS 101, which is Unmanned Aircraft System Fundamentals. And it's a very broad, but with some depth, detailed course about all things unmanned systems, how they fly, what are the subsystems that are involved, the payloads, the sensors, the types of propellers that you can use, the types of engines that you use on them, how the communications work, the ground control systems that you use to control these things with. It also includes some instruction on artificial intelligence and autonomy. And in that particular course, the students, they get a drone, and they learn how to not only manually fly that drone within a controlled environment, to be able to use the controls and learn the muscle memory, the coordination that's needed when you're trying to fly a drone with the control sticks. But they also learn how to program the drone and program it to do little autonomous missions, and in the comfort of their home, kind of thing. It's a small micro drone. It's got prop guards on it and things like that for safety. They also get to fly a simulator. So we hook them up with a modern flight simulator that they can fly from home. We ship them the controller that they hook to their computer, and they fly that simulator. So by the time they get done with this course, they've not only had the kind of the theoretical background and the historical background of drones and what drones are and how they work, but they've also had some experience with actually flying a drone and flying a simulator and getting to prepare to go out into the real world and do some things. The other required course is an introduction to engineering technology, which lays out all of the engineering technology areas that a student could go into. So whether it's electrical engineering technology, mechatronics, it's software engineering technology, mechanical engineering technology, all of those various technologies are going to be able to offer jobs for people that want to work in this industry. And so they get that fundamental training in that, which helps them to know where they want to focus in their electives and what they want to do when they graduate. So then there's a number.
Yeah, John, I was just going to jump in here. I mean, just listening to you, I mean, this is not your run-of-the-mill like training course, right? I mean, this is engineering. I mean, this is significant, and that's a required core course for people getting the certificate. I mean, it doesn't sound easy, but then again, I'm right-brained, right? Like I'm more the artistic, non-engineering brain kind of person. But
well, I want to clarify that it's not an engineering course; it's an engineering technology course. So we don't want people to be scared away thinking they're going to have to do calculus and differential equations and all that. It's taught at the high school level. Basic algebra and things like that are used in some of the courses, but it's not intense from a mathematical perspective. Just what you need to know to be able to point the sensors and plan the missions and things like that.
Well, and it sounds to me like from what you're talking about, your goal is to create professional pilots that are airmen, and air women, I guess, air people. I don't think we ever figured out that right word even in the Air Force yet. But so those are 2 of the 4 core courses, or?
Yeah, those are 2 core courses, and then we've got a bunch of elective courses. So if the student wants to go into, let's say if they want to be an aviation manager and they want to manage a fleet of UAVs for a company, we've got a course that teaches them how to do that. Fred Bovetto actually teaches that course. We've got another course in project management. If they do want to be a project manager and manage projects for customers, okay, they've got a course that teaches them how to do that. We have a systems engineering technology course where they learn all about systems engineering processes. And again, it's called an engineering course, but it's not a heavy duty mathematics course, but they do learn about how to use project management software, how to manage projects. And of course, the projects that are in these courses are all related to the unmanned systems industry because we've made it focused on that.
Right.
We've got a variety of electives for the students to choose from, depending on where they want to go with their education and what they want to do when they graduate.
So just to clarify, because I know someone out there is thinking this question, when people get your certificate or they graduate with all the required credits, are they automatically a Part 107 pilot, or do you train them for that too, or is that a separate initiative?
Okay.
We actually have a question. I'm sorry. I didn't even see this, but James Standen is the before you go comment asking, do you do 107 training? And so he has another question, but that basically great minds think alike. James is always in my clubhouse. So do they emerge with a 107? Do they take the test and as part of the certification that you also give them, or is that something different?
Okay, I want to delineate 2 things here. One, on the accreditation side, we have a course where they go through everything that they need to know to take the 107 test and sit for that test. In that particular course, they actually get a mini drone and they learn to fly that mini drone. That course does prepare them, but going and taking the test with the FAA, sitting for the aeronautical knowledge test, is outside the scope of that course. That's the accredited course. Then on the other side, and this is on the non-accredited side, we have a professional remote pilot and command course that's designed for our corporate customers. We have one corporate customer going through that right now. That course, they do graduate with their Part 107 certificate. It's rolled in part of the course. They have to go take the exam before they actually come out and do the flying with us. And the course can be customized for the different industries that the customers might be in. So the answer is yes and no. On the accredited side, they get all the training they need to go take the test, but taking that test is not part of the course. On the non-accredited side, the students do graduate with their Part 107, and they go on to take the test. We've got one corporate customer right now that is involved in search and recovery, which is a little different than search and rescue. They get involved after the first responders have given up. They're there to give closure to the families, to go find the bodies of their deceased loved ones. And so that particular group has gone through our complete program. 2 out of the 3 have taken the Part 107 exam. They've all passed in the 90s. And so we're very happy to see that kind of results with our very first launch of students in that.
Well, that's awesome. And I can't even imagine doing that job. And yes, I appreciate the distinction between search and rescue and search and recovery. Recovery, knowing full well that you're not going to find someone alive, and you're going to have to work with the family is so sad. But that's awesome that they were able to pass their 107 with flying colors. John, the chat is blowing up, by the way. We've got a couple people out there I want to give some shout outs to. So we have Chris Wedgeworth is here with us all the time. Of course, he heard the video, by the way. I think everybody did. Arlen Benny is out there, loved your video, and coming at us from Stuttgart, Germany. And then 2 questions. So we're going to deviate from the script, and we're going to answer what people want to know. James Stanton, also before you go, asks, are you close at all with Greg Reverdo from the Pilot Institute? Are you working with him at all? Because he's in Arizona as well.
Yes, he's at Flagstaff, I believe. No, we're not working with him directly. Of course, I know Greg. He's one of the most well-known people in the industry. But no, we're not working with them directly. We're working completely independent.
Got it. And Dan Julin from Arium Analytics by the way, fun fact, will be actually in our clubhouse tomorrow. You'll see his little picture at the end of this episode. He's asking, is there any interest for SDI to partner with other colleges or tech schools to further your program in the future?
And the answer to that is absolutely. We're especially talking to accredited institutions. We would like to be able to partner with them and offer ways that we can collaborate. Maybe we can offer our programs for them if they don't have a training program. And because we are an accredited institution, I think that makes a very good marriage between 2 accredited organizations to be able to help each other out. So the answer to that, Dan, is yes.
Well, I'm thinking I'm going to link the 2 of you up, John, because Dan is very deeply involved in Canada and has roots in the aviation industry there. And so there could be a great connection there where maybe SDI goes international. So we'll see what happens with that. But speaking of kind of people, you have surrounded yourself, we kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, with an incredible team. You've got Fred Pavetto, who was on the clubhouse, as we mentioned, incredible in his own right. So funny, John, because when I posted up his picture last week, Top Gun or Maverick, the movie, was just coming out. And I was just like, hey, we're going to be talking to the Air Force's own Top Gun. And I'll tell you what, he really is. And people were loving him in Clubhouse. He had so many questions. Again, checked out that replay. But Fred is just one of many of the great folks you have. Do you want to just kind of real quickly roll through some of the people you have on your staff to give folks a flavor of who is instructing these courses?
Yeah, absolutely. So, some of the subject matter experts that I brought together are obviously people that I knew from the Air Force. Fred was a former student of mine at the test pilot school and went on to do fantastic, great things. Like he was the test pilot for the Global Hawk, the MQ-9 Reaper, the MQ-1 Predator. So he was intimately involved in UAVs from the beginning. And in fact, as he said on Clubhouse, he developed the very first UAS test pilot course for the Air Force. That's pretty significant. So, and ever since that he's retired, he retired as a lieutenant colonel. He's been involved in the smaller UAVs and things like that, and doing many other things. Our chief pilot is a man that's well known in the industry, Scott Strimple. Scott has 47 years of small unmanned aircraft systems experience because he's been part of the AMA, flying ever since he was a kid.
Wow.
So he was an early adopter. Scott's also a check airman and a captain for a major airline, and one of the top three, let's just say that. And he's a check airman, which means he checks out other captains on his aircraft, which is the 777.
Very cool.
And so, a lot of aviation experience. Our chief technology officer for drones, our chief drone technologist, is a PhD at Virginia Commonwealth University, who's designed flight controllers and has been involved, like Scott, ever since he was a kid. And he's in fact the president of the Jet Powered Model Aircraft Association within AMA. So that's Bob Klinke, and Dr. Bob, as we like to call him. He's got an amazing background. Him and his students have designed autopilots and controller processors that have beaten out large companies at some of the AUVSI competitions, and he's hosted and judged at some of those competitions as well. Paul Dragos, one of our lead flight trainers, is a former F-18 fighter pilot. So yeah, Top Gun, through Top Gun.
Yep, there you go.
And Paul got involved towards the end of his Navy career with the Predator for the Navy, and doing test flights for the Predator. And so this team that kind of helped us get this launched in 1 year's time, well over 125 years of aviation experience between all of us. So I would say that we've got an awesome team.
You do, very impressive. And like I said, I think that military experience really informs how you're training and educating these students. And the fact that the Air Force and the Navy, right, have been doing this for a really long time, I think puts you light years ahead of other people that are maybe even reinventing the wheel. Whereas, Fred created the training for the Air Force and he created it for you. I can't even imagine how you could possibly have somebody better on your team. So that's awesome. I can't put John.
Don,
go ahead.
Let me just mention one thing too. I want to talk a little bit about our advisory board. So, as a school, you have to have an advisory board from
Yes,
industry.
you do. Very familiar.
And I think the three members that we've got on our advisory board give us fantastic, again, expertise and coverage. So one member is Matt Dunleavy from Skyscopes in North Dakota. He founded Skyscopes, which is very, very popular. I think they were rated #1 by some organization in terms of drone service providers at one time. A second member of our team is Andy Thurling. Andy was actually a former student of mine at the test pilot school, and we went on to do multiple projects together.
What a small world. I love Andy. Yeah, he's out at New Air.
Yeah, Andy's a great friend of mine, and yeah, he's at New Air, and I heard that he is going to work for another organization, but I won't say anything.
So you maybe heard it here first, everybody. Apparently, he just joined DroneUp today. So
absolutely, today was supposed to be his launch day. So I'm glad you said that. So now I can just tag in and say, yeah, that's what Andy told me. And then our third, so we've got the coverage from the business side with Matt Dunleavy. We've got the coverage from the military and kind of like the airspace and technology from Andy. And then on the public safety side, we've got Charles Werner from Drone Responders. He's on our advisory board. So, we're trying to do this right and have the right expertise to advise us and have the right people to develop and teach courses.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a challenge, John, just listen to all the folks that you're working with right now. And it sounded like the first person you talked to at SDI was a female, was the president. I imagine it's difficult to find female leaders with the kind of experience that you're talking about, to be part of the team, to be instructors, or even advisors. How are you addressing the diversity challenge?
Well, we're very supportive of diversity, equality, inclusion, and all of that. And so when we originally named the school, it was because that's the terminology that the FAA was using. But we're fully on board with changing it to make it gender neutral terminology in the future. And we will be doing that at SUT. In gunsmithing, we don't see a lot of women students. There are some, but in the drone industry, I want to attract women that are interested in STEM and encourage them to do STEM and get involved with drones. Because I know some awesome women out there, yourself included, that are heavily into the drone industry and doing great things, and are part of the movers and shakers that are out there. Sharon Rossmark is a perfect example of trying to promote having women in drones, and we joined that organization, like you said, right after CES,
I remember Sharon came up to me, she's like, hey, I think SDI just joined us. We just met them.
But even more than that, even though we are, very focused on military and veterans, we also want to make sure that we welcome people from all walks of life into our program. So, the type of student that we might get could be anywhere from a high school student to somebody that is just leaving the military, separating or retiring, and wants to take, their great education and training and use it in this industry. Maybe they even worked with drones in the military, and that's great too. That just gives them a leg up. To the person that may be working at a company, let's say they're working at an energy company and they don't know that they can use drones to make their operations safer, more effective, more efficient. And so, they want to get the training so they can bring these drone programs into their companies. So we welcome people from all walks of life, whether they're a stay-at-home parent or whether they're just transitioning military, whether they're a high school graduate. We want to include everybody in this fantastic drone revolution and this new industry that's evolving.
Well, and you're doing so many things to get the word out, John. I mean, this podcast is one way, obviously, and your presence at CES, and of course, more recently at AVSI Exponential in Florida with your booth there. I believe we're going to see you again. Where's the next place we can find you?
Well, for sure, you're going to see it as a commercial UAV, and I forget the booth number right now, but maybe we can post it in the chat.
I know what it is, John. It's 342.
Thank you. I should know that off the top of my head, but minor moment. I don't call them senior moments. I call them minor.
That event's going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada, at Caesar's Palace, right after Labor Day. So I think it's the 7th to the 9th, if memory serves. So I'm going to be there too. I'm really excited to see you again, John, and see so many people from the industry at Commercial UAV this coming September. So really excited about that. We do have about a minute left, and I don't even know how this happened, John. The time has flown by. So why don't I do this? I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds to kind of do your wrap-up elevator speech, and then I'm going to do a quick announcement about kind of what's coming up next. But before we do, I also wanted to thank you, John, and the Sonoran Desert Institute School of Unmanned Technology for sponsoring this entire month of emerging leaders. So thank you so much for doing that.
Well, we're so happy to sponsor you, Don. You're doing great things out there. The people you have on the show are very impressive, and I learn a lot from watching your show. I catch it every chance that I can get, and
thank you so
much. With what's going on. Sonoran Desert Institute has not been known for unmanned systems. I mean, we've been in existence a little over a year now, and so we are trying to get the word out. But the thing I want to emphasize is that the school, as a school, and doing things to make sure that you have quality educational content and that the school is solid financially, and all of those things that the accreditors look at, Sonoran Desert Institute's been doing this for 20 years, continuously accredited by DEAC since 2004, going through reaccreditation right now during the 5-year cycle. So they've been around doing that part of the business a long time. And the team that we put together to work with us on the drone side, the new School of Unmanned Technology, even though we're new to Sonoran Desert Institute, we've been around aviation for many, many years and around the drone business for a long time. So I think we've got the right people in place to make this really take off and go somewhere. We expect over the next year or two to see an exponential increase in the number of students that sign on. We're looking forward to great things in the future. And of course, we can't necessarily talk about what programs we've got in development. That's kind of a no-no with our accreditors. We can't say anything about them, but you can imagine all of the industries that are out there that drones are involved in. We are going to be supporting all of those industries where we think that the highest number of people we can get through the program will go.
Yeah, and John, I think there is one. I know we're a little over, but I do want to get this in because I think it's really important. You kind of have a big announcement. You have an upcoming course that you're launching in the fall, this UAS 250, which is the FAA's small UAS professional remote pilot and the first cohort. Can you just give us the really super quick synopsis of what this is and why it's so important?
Sure. That course gives them, again, everything on the technology side that a remote pilot should know. I go back to my Chuck Yeager days. He knew the aircraft as good as the mechanics did, and that saved his life. We want remote pilots to be professional aviators that know their airplane inside and out, whether it's a drone or a manned air. And this course is the one that does lead towards the students after they take the course, outside of the course, to take and pass their Part 107 exam. So it's not done inside the course, it's done out of the course, but the course provides them with the drones, the simulators. When they leave the course, they're going to have a mini drone that they walk away with that they can go fly. It's a very exciting course, and I think that's one that's going to be very popular.
Well, I think so too, John, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about that more at Commercial UAV. So, like I said, look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for your time today. Hope everybody out there enjoyed this. Just know, please, we're going to continue this month of emerging leaders. Again, thanks to Sonoran Desert Institute and the School of Unmanned Technology. And tomorrow, as I mentioned, we're going to have Dan Julin from Canada, Arium Analytics. Okay, my tongue is getting tied here. Arium Analytics talking on Clubhouse 1 p.m. Eastern. So join us because they're doing some really cool stuff, John, in wild land management and wildlife management. So they actually have a really cool drone called the Rowbird. It looks like a bird, John, and we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. And next week, the CEO, Jordan Sikoria, is going to be on this podcast, same time, same place. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody out there, for joining us today. That's all she wrote. We are out here. Have a great weekend.